Salve a tutti, grazie per la vostra partecipazione a questa sessione. Today I will present a study on what do adolescents know about democratic system and comparative analysis among 24 countries. The work team is composed of Diego Carrasco, Ellen Claus, Ernesto Treviño, David Torres, and me, Catalina Miranda. Not Ernesto. So, defining the construct. Let us first define the construct. The construct we are interested in refers to political knowledge. Two questions emerge in relate to this construct. First, what political knowledge do we measure? For example, factual or conceptual political knowledge. And second, what aspect of political life do you want the citizen to know about? We are going to talk about We are going to talk about conceptual knowledge or textbook facts. That consists of questions about the mechanism of government and institution, and we will focus on the concept of democracy or functions of democracy. Following the question, what situation strengthen or weaken a democracy? But how we think in the political knowledge depends on the conception of democracy we embrace. So the way in which a democracy is understood bring together characteristics of the different shape of conceptualizing. For example, one way students represent democracy is by using categories such as election or representation, which refers to electoral democracy, civil liberties, liberal or majority democracy, influence or citizenship, participative democracy, law and order, liberal or deliberative democracy, and equity, egalitarian democracy. From this, we can ask yourself, can we find different student profiles according to their knowledge of democracy? And to answer this question, your study is based on data from the International Civic and Citizenship Education Study Student Questionnaire, ACCS 2016. We use a large sample of age grade students from 24 countries. The ICCS provide information from 24 different countries of student knowledge of civic and citizenship belief, attitude, and behavior. This test's primary goal is to provide useful information about how prepared are young people to take responsibility for their roles as citizenship. So, the variables selected for this analysis are those from the ICCS 2016 battery. Survey battery relates to the element that strengthen or weaken a democracy. The response categories are when the situation is good for democracy, neither good or bad for democracy, and bad for democracy. Before fitting the different Latin class model, we recode the response to each proposed item as dummy variables. Item TD1 to TD5, where the response 1 is good for democracy, while the rest of the response categories were assigned a value of 0. Complementary items TD6 to TD9 were reverse coded. So a value of 1 was assigned to response of bad of democracy, and while the rest of the response categories were coded as 0. For example, in the case item B, one company or the government owned all newspapers in a country, the correct answer is bad for democracy. So its code was a 1, because media concentration will be a situation that weakens democracy. And we expect the student to have that knowledge. In contrast, in the case item I, all ethnic or racial groups in the country have the same rights. The correct answer is good of democracy. So it is called as 1. How can we find this profile? From the data we use a latent class analysis approach to distinguish groups of students according to typical pattern of response probability on a set of observed indicators. Thus, we feed structurally homogeneous latent class analysis to create a student profile on your knowledge of democracy. The structurally homogeneous model allows comparing among countries without losing interpretability. In this way, the between-country variation is only the proportion of students in each country that pertain to a latent class or response profile. Also, the analysis considers the nesting of students within a school. So, to decide regarding the most appropriate number of latent class, we assess the models in terms of their fit to the observed data. The three latent class model fit the data well, presenting a good absolute fit to the observed data. This fit index results mean that the observed data can be generated by a fitted model of the three latent class. This model presents a classification error of 0.18, which is the lowest classification error among all the fitted models with a satisfactory fit to the observed data. Models with 3 to theoretic class. In the following figure, we present the response profile of the three latent class model. So the free result is the three profile found: minimalist, complex, and limit. To assign names to the fitted latent class, we use 40 latent group name. In each study, perform the same exercise, but with ICCS 2009 data. The minimalist class highly endorse the election of political leaders, the equal access to right and protest to unfair laws, with less than 40% of endorsement for criticize the government and lower rate to dread for democracy, such as media concentration, nepotism, the influence of court of justice by the government, and jailing people without trial. This class represents 36% of the students. The limit class is superior, second line. The limit class present low rate across all proposed items, thus failing to identify good and bad situation for democracy. In contrast, the student in the complex latent category. The limit class identifies as a good for democracy, electing political leader, access to equal rights, and protesting if a law is unfair. Simultaneously, this class also identifies as bad for democracy, new media concentration, nepotism in the government, and the influence of government over the justice system. And finally, complex profile represents 41% of the students. These are students who are more likely to identify situations that are then good for democracy, while at the same time are more likely to identify situations that are bad for democracy. But why these profile names? As previously mentioned, the concept of democracy includes different characteristics: participation, election, liberties, inclusion, other. So when the student conceptualizes democracy with more than one basic characteristic, he or she has a complex vision of democracy. So this student pertains a complex profile. However, there are students who don't know how to represent democracy. Those students will be in the limit profile. They are not always able to provide a definition of democracy or easily identify the constitutive elements that make a democracy. The second result, observing the distribution of profile for each country, include in the analysis, we can see pink box. that the Dominican Republic in America Latina and Malta in Europe have the lowest percentage of complex students, and in Latin America the highest proportion of students are in the minimalist profile. Europe, on the other hand, there is a greater variation. For example, Latvia is divided in extreme, the box, 50% in complex and, no, 40% in complex and 50% in limit, and only 10% in minimalist. And Italy is located between the Republic of Korea and Sweden, blue line. It should be noted that the percentage of limit students is low, 50%, and this is also observed when comparing between countries. For example, in Belgium, limit, the percentage is lower than Sweden, but the difference is marginal, 2%. In addition, the percentage of complex student is close to 50% in Italy. And finally, Finland, Northern Westphalia, and Chinese Taipei are the countries with the higher percentage of students in the complex profile. So, in conclusion, these results have implications for the content about the concept of democracy that is transmitted in the school, considering that the school equips students with the knowledge, democratic skills, and attitude necessary to be an active citizen. This kind of result help to know the student vision of society. Relevance. Knowing the level of political knowledge is relevant for thinking, for example, about political participation. In this sense, this data shows that Italy has a high percentage of students with a complex conception of democracy, but how that is linked to their participation in election. For example, if this study is a first step to then link it with other contextual or individual factors. And the limitation, a methodological limitation, the data show us a general overview of Italy and don't allow us to make a comparison between regions of the country. Therefore, future research will address this aspect and delve deeper into the difference in educational system between regions in the same country. Well, any doubts, comment, or criticism? This is my name, and this is my email. Thank you.